In this video, I'm going to go through our pen practice file, which will help us get better control of the pen tool. So to take a look at the layers real quick, make sure that you're on the Your Turn layer and that these first three layers are shown and the last two are locked. It should be this way when you open the file. So I'll get that out of the way and I will go get my pen tool. And I'm going to start on block 1 where it just says to click. So anytime it says click, it's just a click and release. And here we've got point 2, so click and drag to number 3. So I'll click and drag to number 3. 4 is just click and release. And if this happens, you've got the default white fill. So you don't have to exit out of your path. You can just come over here to your sidebar, click on None for the fill, and that will let you see the instructions again. So on point 5, I'm going to click and drag to number 6. And then I'm going to click on number 1 to close that path. So make sure again that you have the ring next to your pen tool. That tells me that I am definitely going to close that path. And there we've got something that maybe looks a little bit like the Nike symbol. So I'm going to go over to the next artboard. And here I'm going to trace the shape and I'm going to make sure that all the paths are picked up and closed. So a quick review before we start. Anything that's sort of pointy like this is going to be a click and release, hard point, no curves. All of the rest of the points are going to be click and drag. And I'm going to aim to put my anchor points on the curves at the tops of mountains, the bottoms of valleys, anywhere where the curve is changing. Also remember that you can go back and add points. You can use your direct selection tool. It is absolutely okay that if you don't get this perfect the first time, I'm going to do it now and I probably won't get it perfect. So I'm going to click and release on that corner. I know this is a good place to start because it's definitely a click and release simple point. I'm going to go to sort of the bottom of this valley and click and drag until I get a curve that matches, so both in the tilt of my handles and also the length. And probably up here, and I'll click and drag. So already I can see I'm not perfectly spot on. That's totally fine. The lowest point here is probably over here. And then click and release. I've got a bottom of a valley here, so we'll click and drag. And click and drag up here. Click and drag at the bottom. And then make sure I get the circle that tells me I'm closing my path, and then I'll just click and release. And we'll go get my direct selection tool and do some editing of these points. So I just click on that single point, adjust the handles. If I need sort of a longer, deeper curve, I'm going to make the handles a little bit longer. That's what I'm doing now, and as well as adjusting the tilt of them. On this top one, I need a little bit more line, so I'm going to pull out this side of the handle, and you can see it follows better here. This one, I need to move this down and in a little bit, and I need a little bit more line, so I'll pull the right side out. Bottom here, I need a little bit more line, so I'll extend that handle, and then I'll extend the top one so I can have more line to do more of a dramatic curve than I originally drew it. Outside here needs a little bit more. These don't have to be absolutely perfect. So I'm a little off here, but that's all right for the purposes of this assignment. This one looks like I planted that up a little bit high, so I'll just pull the whole anchor point down, and that actually is looking pretty good. Select the bottom one, and I need a little bit more line and a little bit more tilt. And adjust this other side as well, a little bit more line. Right, that looks good. So that's that one done. So this next one is a bit more of a challenging shape. And again, remember, the goal is to not get this perfect the first time around. So again, I'm going to look, since I'm tracing, for a point where I know it's going to be just a click and release, a hard point. So I'll pick this one. This is straight across, so I'm going to hold the Shift key and then click and release here, so I've got that perfectly straight line. And then the curve is changing in here, so I'm going to aim for the middle and click and drag in the direction I'm drawing. This is sort of a curve change area, so I'm going to click and drag there. And up on the top is our next curve change. This is where this shape gets a bit more complicated. So there's sort of a change in the curve here, where it goes from this gentle top curve to descending. So I'm going to plant a point about here and click and drag. And then here the curve starts bending in more, so I'll plant a point there. And then I'm going to aim for sort of the bottom of this valley, which is sort of tilted at an angle. So I'll click and drag there. And again, on this side, around in this area, it looks like the curve's starting to change a bit. So I'll plant a point there. And I think this might be a bit too far, even if I really play with those handles. So I'm going to add one about halfway up, since this is kind of a odd curve. So at the point, I'm just going to do a click and release. And on the other side, I'll sort of go at the same distance as that point from the end. And there's sort of like a bulge here, so this ends up being like a top of a mountain. So we'll have a point there. We've got the curve changing here, as we saw when we went around the inside. So I'll use a longer handle there. And again, the curve's changing around this point to bowing outward to bowing inward. So I'll have to do some adjustment there when I come back, but that's totally fine. Got a top of a mountain here. And curve changes right about there. And then we'll go and close it. I'm going to tap the A key as the shortcut to my direct selection tool. And then I can come back in here and edit those curves. So I'm making this handle shorter. Most of the time, the way I draw, I end up going back and making handles longer, because I learned, so quickly that making them longer was a problem. So here I made this one shorter because I needed less curve in the line. So on this one, I've got the same situation, so I'm going to make that side a little bit shorter. And that will make the shape stick a little bit better to the outline. There's sort of an extra little bump here that tells me that I have too much handle. So I'll make that shorter. And if I make the top longer, it's going to have more of the shape that I want. So a lot of learning the pen tool is really not just trial and error, but learning what your habit tends to be, and then not working against yourself, but learning how to transform the habits that you have as you are learning this into ones that'll make you a more efficient and accurate drawer with a pen tool. So this one little bump here I want to sort out, and then we'll move on to the next ones. So it kind of is flattened out too much. So I'm going to tilt this to get more of a curve, and then shorten that handle a bit, and that looks good. Right, on to the next one. So these are more tracing shapes, and yes, this is based on my cat's face. So these have a combination of curved and hard points. So I'm going to do just one of these for the video. So this one tends to trip people up a little bit. So again, I always look for somewhere I know is just a click and release point, because it's very hard to start off drawing a curve without something to sort of like anchor it to. So I'm going to guess my top of mountain is kind of there. We've got the curve changing there, so I'm going to plant a point there. And it bends quite a bit, so I'm going to put one on the outside of this curve as it is really bending around, and then I've got a click and release point. Curve changes there. And then these are just 3 click and release points, and then 1 curved. And again, 3 click and release points. This section is curved a little bit from about there, and then I'll end with a click and release. Tap the A key to get my direct selection tool and do any adjustments that I need. So I think this point could sort of move up the line a little bit, so I can just sort of drag it up there and do some retilting. And there I've got that shape done. These last 2 are completing letters. So you'll need to go to your layers panel and switch to the letters layer. Then get your pen tool and you can complete these paths. So these are particularly tough. I'll just do 1 letter in each. So once I'm on the letters layer, got my pen tool, I need to make sure I'm picking up paths, so that's that little slash symbol. So I'm going to pick up that path and I'm going to close it there, and we can see the circle with the line through it. It has a line through it because the entire path is not closed. You can see the bottom is still open. So I'll click there to partially close that path. I'll pick up this end, and now when I get here, I get just the circle next to my pen tool, and that tells me I'm closing the whole shape. So that's one on the all caps. And then this is sort of our big challenge here. I'll go for the A, I guess. So I'll pick up this path. And around here. And I can tell now, because I drew that point and I want to draw clockwise, as you know I like to do, because this line is behaving weird, I can tell that this path is drawn the other direction. So I'm going to undo, and I'll tap escape so I'm not connected to that point. I'm going to pick up this end of the path, and I'm going to click and drag so I continue the curve. And then I'll click here because that'll be like a hard point at that joint. Then we'll have a curve starting about there, just a little bit. Complete the top of the A, and then I can close that path. And then I'll pick up this path. So I'm going to go this way because I'm assuming it's going to be counterclockwise. And again, it's picking it up as a hard point. So I'm going to go back to that point, and I'm going to click and drag in the direction I'm drawing to make sure I'm continuing a curved point. And a curve there, let's say, and then close that path. And then again, I'll tap the A key to get my direct selection tool and make some adjustments here to make the letters look a little bit more smooth. Top looks decent. So that's how to complete the letters on this. And once you have completed this, make sure that you save it with your name and turn that into our demo file. In the next video, I'll talk about tracing an image, which we will need for project 2.